Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another in the series, Learning Together, sponsored by Brosis. I am your host for English, Dawn Dawes. We have our English Language Arts class each Wednesday at 5:30, and we have math on Tuesdays and Thursdays at 3:30. Okay, so for today's class, we will be looking at tone and mood. Tone and mood are literary elements rather, that writers use in order to give additional information to the reader. Now, if somebody is speaking, it's very easy for you to identify the tone. But when it comes around to written work, it is way much harder because there are things that we have to be mindful of. And if you're just reading and just calling words, then you're going to miss a whole lot of things. Okay, so we start off. What is tone? What is mood? So tone, as we said before, they are literary elements. Tone. The other one is mood. So tone is the writer's attitude towards a subject or an individual. Okay? The writer's attitude. So let's just leave it at the writer's attitude. So let's say we're not in the writing phase yet. Let's say we are in a situation in the classroom. And as the teacher, I shout at you because you're talking. I say, stop the talking. Why are you so noisy? It's easy for you to determine the tone. However, when I write, let's say I write that same statement. Stop talking. Now, this is one of the things that will help you to determine the tone. Do I put an exclamation mark or do I put a full stop, also called a period? So let's try it with the period first. Stop talking. Why are you so noisy? Now, if you read that, stop talking. Why are you so noisy? Does that sound like I am upset with the person? The tone right there, it's just flat and almost monotonous. But if I put the exclamation mark, it means you can realize that I'm shouting, right? Stop talking. And then, why are you so noisy? You then can say, I am possibly irritated. I am possibly irritated with the speaker because why are you so noisy? The question right there will give additional information to giving the reader the impression that this person is always talking. So the teacher has had it with him or her. So the teacher now is getting to that point where the teacher is using a hostile tone or an irritated tone or an angry tone. Okay? So let's continue here. Now, in addition, ladies and gentlemen, remember that you are not going to be reading a text and the writer says, I am so angry with the fact that my printer does not print when I need it to print. And because of this, No. You will oftentimes see the tone being implied. And the most common way is by looking at the words that the writer uses. We're coming back to that. So let's look at tone. No, sorry, we just looked at tone. Let's look at mood. Sorry. Okay, so mood. What did we say mood is? So if tone has to do with the writer, what do you think mood has to do with? I'm giving you 1, 2. Good. Mood has to do with the reader. So it's the reader's response / emotions evoked by what he or she would have read. So it's the response from the reader. Let's think about a scary movie. The movie is scary. So how are you going to feel as the reader? It is going to evoke certain emotions. You are reading something. You are, as the reader, you are going to be placed in a particular mood. You're going to feel some emotions coming out there. So if I speak to you in an angry tone, how are you going to feel? Because remember, we're talking about tone and mood. And if my tone is angry, then it is going to evoke certain emotions in my audience. So an angry tone may evoke a feeling of disappointment, because you may end up being disappointed in yourself. Or an angry tone may even cause the person who I am targeting to become angry too. So tone right here, ladies and gentlemen, just like in talking, tone in writing is very important. Now, in order for us to understand or to adequately identify tone and mood or vocabulary, you realize every lesson that I do, I talk about your vocabulary. I talk about your word bank, the amount of words you know when you read. Don't just say, I'm reading and that's it. It is important that as you read, Google is at everybody's fingertips. As you read and you meet a word that you do not know, in addition to using context clues to figure out the word, you're also going to use a dictionary or Google it. Okay. So we said that tone is the writer's attitude and mood is the reader's response to the passage or whatever is being read. Okay, so you should have this by now. So let's look at some examples here. Okay. Sarah, could you wash the dishes, please? Writing that same sentence again. Sarah, could you please wash the dishes? So I have 1, 2, 3. Sarah, why have you not washed the dishes? Okay. Okay, just tilt this a little so you can see all my sentences. Good. Okay, so the first one, Sarah, could you wash the dishes, please? What's my tone there? It's almost like I am begging her, Sarah, could you wash the dishes, please? So Sarah now, Sarah's response, is she going to move right away? Or is she going to wait a while and then lays about before she washes it? Sarah, could you wash the dishes, please? It's almost in a, let me write it right here. It's almost as if I am pleading. So the tone comes across here as pleading. Okay. Look at the other one. Look at the second sentence. Sarah, with an exclamation mark, could you please wash the dishes? Now, say that, let me hear you. Sarah, could you please wash the dishes? It's not a question anymore. Notice the exclamation mark is there. So emotions. I am putting some emotions in it. Sarah, could you please wash the dishes? Even though it comes across as a question, it's really a command here, because rather than washing the dishes, Sarah is playing or something. So we have a commanding tone. What other words could we use here? So we have Sarah is being commanding. We could, what other word? What other word could we use? So we have commanding, okay? And when you hear commanding, you didn't think about demanding? Shame on you. Okay, let's go. Demanding, and then the possibility exists too, right here, depending on how strong my voice is, we could also get another one. So let me come to this side. You should be able to see that better. So this is more pleading, this is commanding. So the tone right here is very commanding, or it is demanding. And depending on how it is voiced too, it can also come across as being angry. Okay, let's look at the other one. And let me come back over here because, I have to write with this. Sarah, why have you not washed the dishes? Now, I come home from work and the dishes are still in the sink. So rather than pleading with Sarah, rather than commanding her or demanding that she does it, or getting angry with her for not having done it, I say, Sarah, why haven't you not washed the dishes? How does that come across? What tone do you hear here? Let me ask it again. Sarah, why haven't you washed the dishes? So, questioning. And questioning there comes across as you genuinely want to know, because you realize that something must, worse if it's something that has never happened, your tone is going to be questioning or curious. Because you really want to know. This is not like Sarah. So Sarah, why have you not washed the dishes? Okay, so just a few minutes for you to look at the examples there. So remember that tone and mood are literary elements that writers use in order to bring their points across, to pull the reader's attention, to have the reader focus on what they would want the reader to focus on. So we had somewhat the same scenario, but we stated it in different ways to show how the one thing said in different ways will bring across a different tone. And remember that the tone is what actually brings out the mood. So the reader's tone, the writer's tone will determine how the reader embraces whatever he or she's reading. So just like as parents or adults in general, how we speak to our children will evoke certain responses, how we speak to our colleagues, another adult we meet out there, the tone that we use with them will evoke certain responses. And bear in mind, words are important. So let's look at some of these sentences now. Let's look at some examples now where we have to look at the words to determine the tone. Okay, so yeah, we're looking at tone first. Okay, so look at this sentence now. No. Look at this information here. Sadly, the members of the band were not allowed to enter the concert for free. Instead, the organizers, with their flawed idea of charity, allowed the members of corporate boards to get that benefit. Okay, let me step aside, give you a minute to read it. Okay. Let me read it again. Sadly, the members of the band were not allowed to enter the concert for free. Instead, the organizers, with their flawed idea of charity, allowed the members of corporate boards to get that benefit. So, what is the writer's attitude here? What tone is the writer adopting? How does the writer feel about the subject that he or she is writing on? Think about it. Look at the choice of words, because remember, if you were just reading this, if you never had me standing here to voice it, you would have to voice it. and try as best you possibly can to adopt the correct tone based on the choice of words that are used. So, when you were a child and your parents would read for you and they would change their voices and all of that, this is what would allow them to, because they would have look at the words and how the words are used and then determine the tone. So let's look at the words. Sadly. So you know that this person was not happy about what happened. Sad. So we have sadly, members of the band were not allowed to enter the concert for free. And then we have instead, so we're looking at another, I am not happy that this happened. Something else happened. And then we go flawed. And notice I give that word 3 lines. Flawed. This word right here has the punch of everything that we're looking for. So this first and this second. So what exactly is the writer doing here? The writer is being critical. So the writer has a critical tone. The writer is criticizing how the organizers of the charity, rather than being smart, they were being foolish. So being critical of them, because the persons who were playing on the band, just a few persons, were not allowed to go in free, but these corporate members who could afford it, they were the ones who were being ushered in freely. So see how we use words here to determine the tone? Okay, let's look at another example. Make this sentence too long. The stage progresses to call the judge's attention. Okay. Okay, that's a mouthful. Let me read it for you. Mary danced onto the stage in the most beautiful dress possible. Her graceful strides caught the judge's attention. Her parents, sitting in the audience, were in awe and their eyes glistened with happy tears as they had not expected such an exciting performance. Okay, let me have you reading that. Let me step to the side and have you reading that. Okay. Okay. So you would have already read that. So remember, we're looking out for specific words that the writer would use so as to express how he or she feels about the subject that he or she is speaking on. Okay. Let me read it again. Mary danced onto the stage in the most beautiful dress possible. Her graceful strides caught the judge's attention. Her parents, sitting in the audience, it should have been seated in the audience. Her parents, not sitting, seated. Okay. All right. Mary danced onto the stage in the most beautiful dress possible. Her graceful strides caught the judge's attention. Her parents, seated in the audience, were in awe, and their eyes glistened with happy tears as they had not expected such an exciting performance from their daughter. What is the writer? How does the writer feel about this? Think about it. Think about the words, okay? Notice, danced. We could have said she walked onto the stage, but she danced onto the stage in the most beautiful, right away. You're getting an idea, okay? And then we have graceful, glistened, exciting. So when you look at those words, what comes to your mind? How does the writer feel? Is it a case that the writer the writer's tone is filled with admiration, or the writer's tone is filled with pride? So you could say it's an admiring tone or proud tone. Okay, can we move on from tone now? Okay, and let me reiterate this, guys. In order for you to be able to adequately identify tone, mood, things like those, you must ensure that you have them stored up here. You need to, again, let me reiterate, you do need to work on your vocabulary, because if you don't know the word to use, it is going to be problematic. You will have an idea and say yes, but it is going to be problematic. So let's move on. Or should we do one more? One more? I think we can do one more. Or we go straight into mood, and then when we're done, we look at one that has tone and mood. Yeah, I think that's what we're going to do. Okay, so let's look at mood now. And what did we say mood was again? If tone has to do with the writer's attitude, what is mood? Right, mood has to do with the audience's emotions, feelings that are evoked from what the readers read. Okay, so let's look at examples. Sentences first, then we look at longer parts. No, let me not go there yet. Okay, so get out of my room, you have the exclamation mark there. Get out of my room, please. You have the full stop, also called a period. Get out of my room, you crazy girl. Okay, now let's do number one. Get out of my room. How does that make you feel? Unwanted, you're going to feel as if nobody likes you, your sister doesn't want you anywhere around her, all of that. So this might have been said in a harsh tone, so the receiver, the person hearing it, is going to feel a sense of dejectedness, a sense of not being wanted. Then get out of my room, please. It's like, no, you're annoying me and I just want you to go. So how are you going to feel? Get out of my room, please. I mean, it's just like saying, I'm tired of, just get out. Yes, the person hearing it will feel unwanted again, may feel as if they're unloved, words like those. Then get out of my room, you crazy girl. You get the feeling here that there is some amount of humor right here. It's like my sister and I are in the room and we're joking, and she's like, she throws a pillow at me. Get out of my room, you crazy girl. So I'm going to feel, in a situation like that, I would feel this sense of comfort because she's speaking to me in more of a friendly tone or a humorous tone. So I am going to feel, I may walk away feeling happy. I may walk away feeling wanted, feeling loved compared to the other two. Okay? Let's look at a longer piece of work now. Okay? Okay. And because I'm trying to think as I write, so I try not to read it, because if I while I write and read, then I may lose my chain of thought. Okay, so as the cold metal strap pierced his hands and ankles, Paul vowed to take revenge on all the witnesses who came to his trial. He never minded the fact that he was guilty. They had no right. After all, they knew nothing of the voices taunting his every waking moment. I don't know why I came up with that, but sounds like something that would evoke something in a reader. Mm-hmm. Okay, go ahead, read it for yourselves. Let me get some ideas. Mind you, we said that mood is the emotions evoked in the reader by what he or she would have read, watched, listened to, or all of that. So, as the cold metal strap pierced his hands and ankles, Paul vowed to take revenge on all the witnesses who came to his trial. He never minded the fact that he was guilty. They had no right. After all, they knew nothing of the voices taunting his every waking moment. Okay. So how would the writer, how would the reader feel here? Because do you get a bit of suspense here? If you got a bit of suspense coming out, then one way that the reader may feel is fear. The writer may feel anxiety or anxious. It may also be, depending on your temperament, may also be nervous. Now look at that. Because you know would be wondering, oh Lord, those poor persons, because this is just 1, 2, 3 sentences. We don't know what Paul would have done, but we can figure out by the words here that Paul is, you know, he has some psychiatric problems. So chances are Paul was a serial killer or something along the line, and he had voices telling him to do things. We get that here. So now I am filled with suspense because I want to know what happens next. So I may start feeling anxious. I may get a rush of anxiety. I may feel as if, oh, I don't want to read this anymore, because what if he escapes and he does all of that? So think about, as you read the words, how they affect you. And what words do we have here? As the cold metal strap pierced, he vowed to take, and we know that revenge. Point to note, when we're thinking about tone and mood, we cannot forget connotation and denotation, because we need to be mindful of the fact that words have negative meaning and positive meaning. When you talk about connotation, you're talking about whether the positive or the negative feeling about the word. For example, let me see if I can think of a word right now. I'm blank, but there are some words that mean different things to different people. If you hear the word Christmas, for me, it may be, oh, this warm feeling just enveloped me, because for me, it means family, it means friends, it means a whole lot of food, it means sorrel and fruit cake and all of that. But for somebody else who has maybe not have had pleasant Christmases over the years, They may hear the word and they feel dejected, they feel unloved, they feel as if they're just isolated from everybody else. So different word, same word can mean different things to different people. So we know that revenge is already a negative word. Okay, he never mind the fact that he was guilty. They had no right. So when you look at words and phrases right here, you get the basic picture. Okay. Moving on. One more. Okay. I guess we can look at one more. Let's go. Seagulls are, no, not seagulls. What's swans? Swans are beautiful creatures. The only sad thing is that, mind you, I am making this up as I go along. So patience here, guys. And remember, because I'm thinking as I write, I will not be reading what I'm writing until I've completed writing it. Okay, 2 sentences. I think I can add another one. Okay. Swans are beautiful creatures. The only sad thing is that they are easily agitated and will attack if feel threatened. Their nests should be avoided at all costs if you value your legs. Simple, simple. Okay, let's think about possibly the writer's tone and the reader's mood. Okay, go ahead. Let me see what you come up with. Okay, moving along. So swans are beautiful creatures. The only sad thing is that they're easily agitated and will attack if threatened. Their nest should be avoided at all costs if you value your legs. Now, the writer here may decide that this, we're going to do tone over here and mood over here. Okay, so think about it. Tone. somewhat of a casual tone. It's it's just giving you information. And it's not, and we would not say it's formal. You know why? Because look at the last sentence. Their nest should be avoided at all costs if you value your legs. So this is not the kind of writing you would find in a textbook. So we don't want to go the route of formality. It's more of a casual tone. And then, can you see here? Let's think about the mood. How would a reader feel having read this? Think about it. Swans are beautiful creatures. The only sad thing is that they are easily agitated and will attack if feel threatened. Their nest should be avoided at all costs if you value your legs. So the reader may feel somewhat, I can't write from this angle. Let me see. Okay. Apprehensive. Okay. Or Autious. So the reader may end up feeling apprehensive or cautious. So I don't think I want to go near those swans, or I'm being cautious. Okay, so casual tone. And remember, depending on what would have come first, it could have been humorous or something along that line. So just to recap, so in recapping, remember, tone and mood are literary elements that writers use in order to have the reader focus on information. Tone, as we said earlier, we think about the writer when we think about tone. And when we think about mood, we think about the reader. So what is tone? Tone is the writer's attitude to his or her subject. And mood is the reader's emotions or feelings. Emotions, feelings that are evoked by the text or whatever information we would have read. In addition, be mindful when we are speaking to somebody, it is easy for us to identify the tone. And we can do this by facial expression, their tone or the pitch. When I say tone, whether they're angry or all of that, the pitch of their voice, the volume that they use, among other things. In addition, as the listener, when I hear, you can easily see my feedback because my facial expression will change or I may walk away or something along that line. However, in reading, it is not as easy because we're not hearing, so it's not easy for us to determine what tone is being used. So how do we find tone when we read? We look out for things such as words used by the writer. We look at the words that the writer uses. We also look at punctuation. Things like exclamation mark, things such as a question sign in a particular place. Sometimes we may wonder why is a question sign here and all of that, but writers will imply their tone. It's up to you to determine what tone they're using. And therefore, yes, again, I'm going to reiterate, it is important that we work on our vocabulary. Mood also is important because we are evoking certain feelings, certain emotions when we read. Therefore, as a student, if you are required to identify tone and mood, you must yet again have a working vocabulary of these terminologies. So, ladies and gentlemen, we looked at tone and mood, two literary elements today. And before I go, connotation. We need to also know the connotative meaning of the word, as I mentioned earlier in the lesson, because words mean different things to different persons. When you hear a particular word, it may evoke certain emotions in you, whereas somebody else, it may have a different emotions. For me, it may be positive. For you, it may be negative, or vice versa. So, this has been Learning Together with Dawn Dawes. Stay tuned for another in the series next week, Wednesday, at the same time. Thank you.